Today, with the ringing of our peace bowl, we affirm our collective hope for peace in the world and at home. We acknowledge that these lands that we love are the ancestral lands of the Yavapai people. We also acknowledge that the acoustics in here still have some work to be done. And we acknowledge the help today of our sound engineers in the back.
Good morning. And welcome to the first Sunday in our beautiful, new, amazing sanctuary. I am the Reverend Michelle LaGrave, she, her, the minister of this congregation, and I am so glad to see all of you here this morning. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whether you find yourself on your life's journey, whether you walked in or rolled in or zoomed in, whether you are brand new or a longtime elder, whether you helped to build this roomy new sanctuary or are just passing by, whichever your pronouns, however old you are or young, whomever you love, you are welcome here. You belong here.
We begin our service in Unitarian Universalist tradition, lighting a chalice. And our chalice lighter this morning is Michelle. Reverend Michelle is lighting our chalice for us this morning. We light it for the first time in this inspiring new space where it can stand front and center as a reminder that together our beloved community can accomplish great things. We light this chalice for our children and youth and for us, celebrating the flame of faith lit in each of us. Honoring the light each of us brings into the world. We light this chalice with the knowledge that this flame will intentionally end with our ritual extinguishing, yet knowing that the flame lives on in our hearts, and from every ending, we are sent forth to make a new beginning.
Here we are at yet another new beginning, a new year, a new ministry, a new staff, a new sanctuary, and with new values. Here, now, we begin again. We begin in gratitude, with joy, in hope, and with courage. The future dawns, and we begin again in love.
Oh, yay. Mm-mm.
Please join me in saying the words to our covenant, which are found in the order of service. And I think we have a slide too. We're working on those. Love is the doctrine of this congregation.
Congregation.
The quest
Seek
for
the
truth
truth
is
is
sacrament, and
and
service
this
is
is our
prayer.
prayer.
To
To
dwell
dwell
together
together in peace,
to seek knowledge
and
and freedom, to serve
serve
others in
in this
community. Thus
thus
do
do
we
we
covenant
covenant
together.
together.
Now, I would like to invite all those who are young or young at heart to come up, placing your flowers on the way in the vases right by your beautiful piece of art. And then come up here with me, and we're going to have our time for all ages.
Oh, wow.
What makes you a true you? Love at the core of what you do. We commit to work as a team to make our values more than a dream. Gently helps us keep in mind 6 values that you use have defined. Justice means we make things fair. We vote, speak up, and act with care. Equity is when everyone gets what they need for work and fun. Transformation needs we change, and we can still grow at every
Oh, that was so nice. Thank you.
Yours? What makes you a true you? Love at the core of what you do. We commit to work as a team to make our values more than a dream. Shipping helps us keep in mind 6 values that you use have defined. Pluralism is how we say we know there's not just one way.
Thank you.
Interdependence means we're connected, so our earth and its people are respected. Generosity is the last we can learn to share before we're at. What makes you a true you? Love at the core of what you do. We commit to work as a team to make our values more than a dream. Gently helps us keep in mind 6 values that you use have defined. Gently helps us keep in mind 6 values that you use have defined.
As I look out, I'm thinking every single one of you, unless you were visiting today, perhaps, had a part in making this room come alive through your donations, through your committee work, through your suggestions, your advice. And we all thank each of you, give each other an applause for all the work you put in to making this happen. Thank you, everyone, for all that you've done and will be doing. As we prepare to receive the offering this morning, let us embrace the feeling of connection and community that we have when we gather here each week. Let us remember that this congregation and its programs are supported by your continuing generosity. We also give back to the greater community through our Seeds of Support program. This month's recipient is Granite Peak Holiday Gifting Program. Some of you may remember that for many years we helped immigrant families celebrate the holidays by providing a safe space where we had breakfast for them all over in Davis Hall, and the kids gathered in here and had games and activities and got presents from Santa Claus. Well, during COVID, that all changed. So now the new beloved tradition is the Social Justice Council partners with a local school district to identify families living in poverty. And we provide gifts for the children and gift cards for the adults. For many, these are the only holiday gifts they receive. If you'd like to contribute online, please visit our website at prescottuu.org. The ushers will now collect the offering. Beloved community is at the heart of Granite Peak UU congregation. As we experience this time of meditation and music, we take a few moments to silently acknowledge the joys and concerns on our hearts and minds. If there is an event that moves you to joy or concern, hope or gratitude, grief or remembrance, you are invited to come forward and drop a pebble from the dishes into the communal water as an affirmation of our connection to one another. I'll begin by dropping a stone for Joan Brown, a beloved member of this congregation, for the grief we share, while Reverend Michelle lights a candle in her memory. May our joys and concerns, surrounded by the healing communal water of our beloved community, be acknowledged here today. So may it be. Please join me now in singing Spirit of Life.
It's BJ. Peter, oh, there's Peter. There's Stephen. Tracy.
There is a love, a fierce, demanding, powerful love that will not let us go. This love is tenacious, communal, salvific, and universal. This love is committed, dedicated, relentless, and transformative. Sometimes, this love is difficult, challenging, and contentious. It is not sentimental. This love acts. It acts in the present, embraces the future, and perseveres above all else. This love does not let us go, does not let go of the person, the community, the vision, the hope. This love fights. It is a mama bear love, a holy love, and it powers our work for and vision of justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. This love is the love that propels us toward beloved community. This love is the love that says, si se puede, yes, we can. This love is the love that built this sanctuary. I'm going to tell you a story in a funny kind of way this morning because I can't remember half of it. Which is kind of the point and is sort of telling that there are parts of the story that I can't remember. When I was a minister in Illinois, Central Midwest, I went to some kind of ministerial gathering that had not just my group of sub-regional ministers, but the whole entire region's worth of ministers were there with all of the various clusters. And there was something that we were pretty upset about. I cannot tell you what it was. It was something related to justice and fighting oppression, and more than that, I don't know. And we felt really strongly about it. And so we wrote a letter and broke up into our various clusters of ministers. So I was in this room of maybe 30 to 40 people, kind of a lot of people to be discussing a letter and proofing it and all of that. And we decided as a group that the way we would decide whether to send the letter or not, because even though we're ministers, we're still UUs, and you have to decide about how to decide things. We're all about process, right? We decided that we would decide by consensus, which meant that everyone in the room had to agree. It was not a democratic majority rules kind of vote. It was more of a Quaker style consensus method of agreeing to put this letter out there in the world. And people had the possibility of, the phrase at the time was standing in the way or remaining in the way. And we got to the point where everyone in the room was in agreement except for one person who would not stand down, who insisted that he would stand in the way. It was emotional and difficult and challenging and contentious, and the tears were pouring down many of our faces because we were heartbroken at the idea that we could not take this action. Tears were pouring down my face too. And I remember a minister sitting next to me and comforting me. What happened next, so the person who was standing in the way, I'm sorry to say this, but I will because it gives a context of privilege, was an older, white, straight, cisgender man. And two of the other ministers who were younger, these days Gen X, my age, is younger, suggested that we put our session in recess and that they would take him aside and talk with him one-on-one about how they saw the issues and sort of explain for him, especially how the women in the room might be seeing the issues that were in front of us, as well as people with other identities. In the end, they came back and he was waffling. And eventually, after more discussion, said, I am not in agreement, but I will not stand in your way. And we moved forward with the letter, and it was sent to wherever it was. What wound up being so powerful and telling in that story, in that experience, was not the social justice issue at hand. We face social justice issues all the time and write letters all the time, right? What felt so powerful was the experience of love in that room. It was a fierce and demanding and powerful and relentless and salvific love. We who were not the one person standing in the way did not waver on the commitment to consensus. That was never discussed, that we would take that away and instead turn over to a majority vote. We were all willing to not do if consensus could be reached. That fierce love showed up in the two men who took the third aside and spent the time with him in really deep and heartfelt discussion. That fierce love was felt in the one who had been standing in the way and eventually was able to be moved, to be changed, to be transformed by that love so that he would not remain in the way of the love that was felt in the rest of the room that was propelling us forward. It was a very memorable and powerful and definitely deeply spiritual experience. I was not here when all of you gathered together and finally made the decision to move forward with building this sanctuary, putting together project teams and aesthetic teams and capital campaign raising money teams and doing the untold hours and hours of work that were really a labor of love. I was not here to experience how that process went. I've heard a little bit of stories. I imagine that there was at times love that was difficult or challenging or contentious. And yet that fierce love prevailed. And here we are, standing and sitting and being together in this sanctuary. That fierce love is here too. It's here in this moment, and it has been here in this congregation for a long time. This love that I'm talking about this morning is not new, though perhaps the way we talk about it is. We, as Unitarian Universalists, have gone through a process of transitioning from our 7 principles to our shared values, which are powered by and centered on love. So I'm going to talk a little bit. I know some of you are pretty savvy and were aware of the entire process as it went on. Many of you were not. Many of you are sitting here for the first time today and have no idea what even the principles were. So I'm going to talk about the history of this a little bit and try to tell it in the form of sort of a story. Way back in 1961. Who knows what happened in 1961?
Kennedy was shot.
Yes. The Unitarians and the Universalists combined, they merged into one denomination or association to create the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, the UUA, of which we are a part to this day. And they began with some principles which were embedded in their bylaws. Anybody know how many principles there were? 6. In 1961, there were 6. And there was that aspect of difficult and challenging and contentious love that got the Unitarians and the Universalists to that point of merging together. And it almost fell apart based on a preposition. The word the. So I'm going to read the principles as they came out in final form, and then I'm going to go back and tell you the story of the. Remember, this is 1961. Number 1, to strengthen one another in a free and disciplined search for truth as the foundation of our religious fellowship. 2, to cherish and spread the universal truths taught by the great prophets and teachers of humanity in every age and tradition, immemorially summarized in the Judeo-Christian heritage as love to God and love to man. Number 3, to affirm, defend, and promote the supreme worth of every human personality, the dignity of man, and the use of the democratic method in human relationships. Number 4, to implement our vision of one world by striving for a world community founded on ideals of brotherhood, justice, and peace. Number 5, to serve the needs of member churches and fellowships, to organize new churches and fellowships, and to extend and strengthen liberal religion. And number 6, to encourage cooperation with men of goodwill in every land. How do those sound to you? Like the 60s. Kind of outdated, right? Does it feel super relevant to who we are as you use today? Little pieces here and there, maybe, but basically, meh, right? So the one that almost tanked the entire merger was about the Judeo-Christian tradition. At this point, by the 1960s, many Unitarian Universalists had really been involved in humanism. Actually, most of the signers of the first Humanist Manifesto and many of the subsequent ones, I think we're up to 3 now, were Unitarian Universalist ministers. So humanist was a very, very strong element within our traditions. And especially for Universalism, which was still much more Christianity-based at the time of the merger, the Bible, although albeit the teachings of Jesus rather than the person of Jesus, was really important and meaningful to them. So here we are talking about the first half, to cherish and spread the universal truths taught by the great prophets and teachers of humanity in every age and tradition. Okay, they were all good with that. But then they came to the part where they had said, immemorially summarized in our Judeo-Christian tradition, heritage, as love to God and love to man. They tell stories about how contentious this discussion was and how they stayed up way late into the night to talk about this until finally someone suggested substituting the word our in Judeo-Christian tradition to the word the Judeo-Christian tradition, and all was resolved like magic. Of course, we UUs always have something that we're working on, trying to make better, less oppressive, less racist, less problematic in a million different ways. So the two faith traditions combined, and in the 1970s, especially, the women in religion movement rose up, and people started talking a lot about how patriarchal our religion was, which was shocking, as they say, to many men and some women to hear about. And so the women began talking about it more and more and trying to educate people and talk about the use of different language. So that by the time the early 80s to mid 80s rolled around, we were ready for our next set of principles to be less patriarchal and less sexist. And aside here for the moment, embedded right in our Article 2 of the UUA bylaws, we are required every 15 years to review our principles to make sure that they do not become embedded or concretized like a creed or dogma. So the next time period that rolled around was the early 80s, where they began to study the idea of the principles. And then in 1984, they voted to affirm them. And in 1985, voted a second time, because we have to make extra double sure that we're doing what we really want to do. And they came out with the principles pretty much as we know them up until today. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience, and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. How do those sound? Much better, right? So the reason every 15 years we review our principles and purposes is because we consider ourselves to be a living tradition. That's right on the front cover of that gray hymnal, singing the living tradition. We do not want to be stale, outdated, stagnant, any of those things. We want to keep up with the times. So after 40 years of the principles being pretty much the same every time, there were times we reviewed them and just said, nah, we're good. A lot of people felt that there was a creeping creedalism to our 7 principles. People were talking about how we believe in our 7 principles as if they were a creed instead of a covenant, which tells us how to behave and is a critical difference. So in 2020, the UUA board appointed an Article 2 study commission and asked them to do a really thorough and deep dive into our principles. One of the issues that was at stake was that by this point, many of our congregations had independently adopted an 8th principle that was specifically about working against racism and working against oppression. But they weren't in the association's principles yet. They weren't in the UUA's principles. There were still 7 there. So the question was, do we keep these the same, the 7 plus add the 8 that so many of us had adopted as individual congregations? Do we do something completely different? What's going on here? So what they came up with involved eliminating the principles almost entirely, and instead talking about our shared values. This was pretty shocking to a lot of people because we had grown very, very attached to our 7 principles. It had been 40 years after all. We had raised our children to believe in maybe these principles or to act on these principles. And a lot of people had trouble letting go. So I'm going to share with you something that the Commission on Appraisal wrote at the time, which I think sums up their thinking much better than I can. They had been asked why they did away with the word principles, and this was their answer. The Commission spent a long time studying and analyzing the current version of Article 2. What became clear was that we don't explicitly name the values that we share, and that our covenant does not have enough verbs. Shared values are what holds any organization together, and we often speak of our shared values without naming them. We asked Unitarian Universalists what were the values we shared. We took the many answers we received and synthesized them into the values in our draft. After our first draft was released, we changed one of the named values from evolution to transformation. Jet pig almost didn't come into being right there. We created a covenant related to each of our named values, as well as a very brief description of the values. The covenant has many verbs and is stated in broad enough language so as to allow congregations to find their way to live into our shared values. After much discussion, many hours of speaking and listening to one another, and by many they mean thousands and thousands of hours, proposing and debating amendments, Article 2 passed. And so, and again with 2 votes, 2023 and then again in 2024. We had a practice year. And so now, here we are in our new sanctuary and living out our newly articulated shared values. I want to be clear that I absolutely believe that this congregation and probably most of our congregations are already living out our shared values. What we haven't learned how to do is to articulate them. We talked about our values all the time. We say things like, we want to go to a congregation where people think like me. But we don't say what the thoughts are, and we don't say what the values are. So what are they? That's the part that we have to practice and lean into and learn to talk about in maybe a little different and renewing and refreshing kind of way. So as I share these values, 2 things you should know. One, the idea is that love powers all the values, and that power of love holds us together. And that these values are inseparable from one another. And by the way, if there are any creative types in here, in order to not embed things and make things set in stone, like maybe the principles got a little too much of, the UUA is encouraging us to submit our own designs for the 6 shared values and the 7th, which is the power of love. We have 2 already. There's a flower graphic with petals, which you have seen on the screen today. And there is an atom-shaped version with the names of the values in the different aspects of the atom with love in the center of the atom. So if you want to create yet another image for that, you can. If you want to word the values in the way they are in Article 2, you can. If you want to use JetPig and remember the order of JetPig, I need JetPig because I can't remember without it. Then you can do that. So we're trying to be loose and flexible here is what we're talking about. So as I share each of these values with you, I want to invite you to take a moment, I'll pause at the end of each one, to reflect upon the ways in which these already show up in your life and in the life of this congregation, because they absolutely do, as well as where there might be more work to do. Love, and I'm going to begin with love powers. Love powers our work for interdependence. We honor the interdependent web of all existence. With reverence for the great web of life and with humility, we acknowledge our place in it. That's the description part. And here's the covenant. We covenant to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation. We will create and nurture sustainable relationships of care and respect, mutuality and justice. We will work to repair harm and damaged relationships. And in our more plain language from the JetPig song, interdependence means we're connected, so Earth and its people are respected. Love powers our work for pluralism. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. And in the words of our song, pluralism is how we say we know there's just not one right way. Love powers our work for justice. We work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions within our congregations, our association, and society at large. And in the words of our song, justice means we make things fair. We vote, speak up, and act with care. Love powers our work for transformation. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian Universalist heritages. Never complete and never perfect. And in the words of our song, transformation means we can change and we can still grow at every age. Love powers our work for generosity. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. And from our song, we can learn to share before we're asked. Love powers our work for equity. We declare that every person is inherently worthy and has a right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. As we prepare to sing our final hymn, please know that for this Sunday, we will be sharing our announcements at the conclusion of the service. So Lena will play just a little bit of music. We'll do the announcements, and then she'll play the rest of the music for you to recess with, since we're using big fancy language today. Now let us rise either in body or spirit and join in singing our closing hymn, Wake Now My Senses. Please join me in saying the words to the extinguishment of our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. As you leave this place, know that even more than you love, you are loved by a fierce and unrelenting love that will never let you go. Amen and blessings.
Amen.
I know you're all anxious to get to Davis Hall for the coffee hour. And to visitors today, yes, we have an amazing coffee hour after this, worth hanging around for and meeting the rest of the folks here. So I have a few announcements. I'll try to keep them very brief. Thank you, everybody who brought their green bags today. They need 7 people yet to sign up for Prescott Valley on Saturday, the 11th at 8:30, and 2 people at the Faith Development Building at 9 o'clock. So see Catherine or the green. Oh, I was supposed to put this on when I'm talking about green bags. Go see Catherine or Maura. The Bohemian Fest is coming up, so you can now pick up your auction pamphlet and start paying for the tickets to attend that, which is on October 24th. After the service on Sunday, November 2nd, we'll be celebrating the volunteers who contributed to Empty Bowls this year. So come to that and purchase another bowl. And as you know, the new directories are available. So if you are a pledging or contributing member or friend of record, you get one complimentary copy. And there are three tables out in the, one is here, one is over there. Oh, over here, they're all here. I thought they were in Davis Hall, I'm sorry. Go to your appropriate table to pick up your directory. If you see an error or omission, see Bev in Davis Hall. And anyone who is not pledging or a contributing friend or record would like one, they are $5. And again, see Bev. I think that's everything. Go enjoy your coffee and your conversation and your tea or your water or your orange juice. I always say coffee, but